Hello. So I'm going to share with you my last 10-day silent retreat, Vipassana. And I decided to change scenes and have Buddha right behind me, kind of looking over my shoulder and give me insight into what would be worth sharing with you. And just feel into the energy. So this was the sixth time that I was attending Vipassana. And I had kind of high expectations. So what happened right before I attended was I mentioned my last video that I had this incredibly intense experience of discovering all these parts of myself in a car ride back from a conference. And then what kind of unraveled after that, while these parts started emerging, kind of these traumatized parts of myself started to actually emerge. The way I was dressed, the way I was speaking, was acting, was like very different, almost childlike, some of these characters. And then a few days after that incident, my left eye I got what looked like a sty, but my left eye started to swell up. Um, and the part that was, and by the time I got to Vipassana, my left, pretty much that night, my left cheek had swelled up. It was really tender to touch, especially near the jaw. My left eye had swollen, the eyelid, red. It was red and swollen, painful. And my left shoulder, I was feeling like pain, like almost nerve pain in my left shoulder. It almost looked like I'd been beat up on the left side of my body. And the part of that was interesting, the left side of the body correlates to the right brain. It's also thought of as the feminine side. The right brain is the body, the subconscious, the emotion and sensation. So it's the more feminine, the more masculine is the right, the more feminine is the left. And I had suppressed the feminine in my life because ancestral, childhood, who knows, trauma. Um, so it was really interesting and this little girl that I met in the well, who looked really beat up and bruised and abused, um, she kind of looked like that. And so I was thinking, like, whoa, this like shadow, this part of me has kind of like literally surfaced. And when I looked in the mirror, when I got to Vipassana, I was horrified. I mean, I felt like Phantom of the Opera, like half monster, half human. And immediately the thoughts in my head were like, oh my God, it looks so ugly. Like, how am I going to go back? Like, I need to get the surgery quickly. And like, I didn't want to get the surgery though, because I got this same thing a year ago, weirdly, never before in my life. Last year I got it about almost the same exact time frame. And it was my right eye that time. And I ended up getting the surgery. And then I ended up going through like a constellation with my family where it ended up bringing up ancestral trauma, abuse, domestic violence. And I ended up falling into getting into kind of a weird, what looked like a violent situation with my family, really disturbing. And then I ended up going into a dark night of the soul. For like 3 days, I was deeply depressed. And when I came out of that was when I was drawn to the 2 ayahuasca journeys, the 10-day silent retreat. And my life I describe as taking a sharp right turn out of any reality I've ever known into a world of magic and mystery. So that was that episode. It's a weirdly now, almost exactly a year later, my left eye. And right after I experienced this unraveling where I've touched such deep shadow in myself. So I'm in Vipassana, and for the first 4 days, I was doing the usual meditation, and I was feeling some of the yoga moves that I've felt in the past, like the movement a little bit in my room, but wasn't really getting much. And by the fourth day, I kind of crumbled. I wasn't feeling much sensation. I wasn't feeling much depth of meditation. I felt like I was failing. Um, and so, and it didn't occur to me, of course, until I looked at it in hindsight when I got back, is that whenever I went in with high expectations, that was high ego. And so, of course, there had to be something that brought my ego down, allowed me to come to a place of surrender with no expectation. That then the guides and my higher self could actually come in and move through me what they wanted, or what I was intended to move through. And so then it started pretty fantastic set of experiences that I'll try to summarize. Let me see if I can do this really from a centered place. So what I experienced then was I was compressing. I was doing warm compresses on my eye because I'd heard that that's what you needed to do, and my eye started getting bigger. My eyelids started getting more and more swollen, and I kept feeling this disgust and distaste for how it looked. And I was embarrassed when I was in the bathroom, and we had a shared bathroom, and other people would see me. At first, I tried to hide it or try to shorten it, and then in the discourse, he was talking. He was talking about attachment to the body, and I was thinking like, yes, I'm obviously really attached. I don't like how it looks. I'm worried about how it's going to look when I get back, and how are people going to see me, and how am I going to connect with them? And I was, all these kind of superficial things were going through my mind. So it was a really stark, visceral experience of my attachment to my body and my inability to let that go. And to think of it as just as a body. And you talked about, like, you think of it as the four elements, or a compilation of just parts. It's an instrument that takes the spirit through the human experience. I couldn't do it. I was really attached. And so I kept doing that, and I was like feeling all of this and feeling worse and worse. And my meditation then crumbled, and I was at this total rock bottom place. The next morning, right before I went into I think it was day 5, before I went into the meditation, I did a quick compress, and I looked in the mirror. And suddenly I was wearing this pink shirt, and my eye was like red. My eyelid was red, and my cheek had become pink from compressing it for 10 minutes. And my hair was falling, all the way on the left like this. And then suddenly when I looked in the mirror, I saw this like almost sensual, sultry woman. Like it looked like her eye was like kind of like drowsily closed, almost like a seductive kind of closed. And I suddenly saw, it was so bizarre. I saw the beauty of this woman. So I went into the meditation, and then when I saw that image again, I immediately started to break down and connect with this part of myself, and it took me to the second chakra, which is desire and sexual identity and sexual trauma, all in the second chakra. And I was taken to like fear and shame, all the things that were, buried in the subconscious. And I started to sob, and I felt this volcano come up. And then I allowed it to move, and I moved to anger, about the injustice and the fact that, like, why was I ashamed? Like, what's wrong with my, like, sexual desires and my moving through the trauma in the way that I needed to, and, like, wanting to be, like, allowed to be human. And then I went to just rage and anger. Like, if other people can't allow me that or accept that, then so be it. I will do what I need to heal this part of me. And then I ended up coming to this place of just peace and calm. And then I went to, like, when I went back to my room, actually it was like the pagoda cell. I went to the pagoda cell, which is a really dark, space, individual cell. And immediately what started happening was my hands started moving, and I was creating a sphere, and it was pretty quick. Like last time when I went, it was like, it was a lot of energy collecting and then forming. In this case, my hands just came together, and I immediately saw in my mind's eye a sphere being created. And then my hands, I could feel magnetic energy in both my hands. It started energizing this sphere. And after about, 3-4 minutes, the sphere was pushed into my second chakra, and I felt like a surge of energy. My body kind of jerked, and I felt a surge of energy pushed into my second chakra. Now, there were a couple of these. And so I thought, like, I wonder if they helped me release some of this trauma, and now the guides are now helping me re-energize and heal this chakra. And then what started happening over the course of, the days that preceded, was I was being taken to each of the chakras, all 7, actually 8 chakras. And for the first 6, the first 6 chakras, all 6 chakras, I was taken to memories, experiences in this life, even past lives, where there was trauma or blocking of the energy in that chakra. So I'll give you a couple of examples, just not to make this too long, but like one of the more interesting ones was the third chakra. And I didn't know which one would come up. I'd sit in meditation, I'd start getting these thoughts, and I started getting the thoughts in the third chakra. The third chakra is will, it's drive, it's a seat of ego. And I started getting, I mean, there were so many examples of that, like, my desire for accomplishment and my chase of the grade and, the trophy, and the title and the recognition, my workaholism and my aggression, my competition, my ego that really drove me most of my life so far. Um, and I suddenly then started getting the image. If you've seen the movie Sinners, which I saw a few weeks back, it's a movie about vampires. Really bizarre, beautiful music, but really kind of bizarre movie. But they were showing me the scene. My guides were showing me the scene where this woman, she'd been bitten by a vampire. She became a vampire. Now she was with her boyfriend. He was human. She was a vampire, and she started biting him on his chest, and she was like almost like she was eating his chest, and he was of course dying. And I was thinking like, oh, why are they showing me this scene? It was so grotesque and disturbing, scary when I remember when I saw it. And I didn't understand it, and then all of a sudden, I felt this dark entity come out of me and was on my right side. And I kind of like shuddered because I could feel some weird presence next to me. And I was like, I immediately called my guides, like, please take this away. Please help me. And I thought of the purple flame that I often, that I do when I want to clear space or anything. Thought of the purple flame. And then I felt this entity was being escorted off the property. And I thought, like, and the immediate knowing that came into my mind when I was, in the dark pagoda cell meditating, deep meditation, was that was an entity, a trauma, basically, that had grown large enough to become an egregore, a thought form that was an actual entity that was, it was like in my third chakra, and it was fueling my ego, this bloodthirsty, for accomplishment and success and validation. It was like bloodthirsty, like a vampire. That's what I was being shown. So I thought, wow. And then what started happening was I started creating spheres and then sending it to the third chakra. And then I would feel all the surge of energy. And so multiple spheres were quickly, created and then energized within a few minutes and then sent into the third chakra. And then there was nothing I really sensed in the fourth chakra then. There were spheres that were just sent energy there, but nothing that I felt. I remember having to clear. In the fifth chakra, there was things that I saw that, that were not, there were some things that came up. The more interesting one was the sixth chakra. And when I came to the sixth chakra, so I'm trying to think what sequence this happened. I don't remember, so I'll just share what's coming to mind here. So in the sixth chakra, basically, the sixth chakra was like mastery, intellect and mastery. And so then I was shown scenes from like I remember two of the movies or shows that I was shown. One was Silence of the Lambs. So he was a master of cannibalism. The way he would lure people and then like kill them and so on without being caught was a mastery, but it was a lower world mastery. And then I was shown the Netflix series that I've seen part of called You, where he, this guy like he kind of seduces or starts dating women, and then he's a master of like luring them in also, and then trapping them in his basement and then eventually killing them. And so it was like, they were showing me these lower world masteries that I assumed had to be, in my system, my experiences or my past lives or something. And then so those would clear, and I was having these nightmares and dreams at night or when I take a nap in the afternoon of similar weird lower world like lives that I think scenes that I hadn't seen before, experiences of lower world lives mastery. And then there was like, what they did was they started with like spheres. It was like golf ball and like size energy, and it would be like create it, energize it, and then my hand would automatically go to like the sixth chakra between the eyes. But it would increase in size. So then it was like golf ball and then baseball, volleyball, beach ball. And then it was like my arms all the way outstretched as far as they could go. I had to stand up in order to create a sphere that large. And then that got sent to my sixth chakra and tons of energy that was moving through me. And then what happened was I still had this swollen face. But as soon as I did the sixth chakra, then my right hand shot up to my left eye. And I thought, oh my, thank God. Am I going to heal this? Are they going to help me heal the eye? So for 2.5 hours, I could feel this magnetic heat, over my eye and my face, the left side of my face. And then I was like feeling so much joy, like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like I'm healing myself and maybe I have more healing powers now. And then I came out thinking like, it's gone. And I looked in the mirror, and my eye was like half, but it reduced, but it was still quite swollen. Like, why isn't it gone? And my face had like completely healed. My cheek was no longer swollen. It was no longer tender to touch. And same with my shoulder, but my eye was still swollen. And so there was like, okay, that was cool. But like, and then I felt instant kind of disappointment at first. But then I thought, you know what? It's a surgery. There's probably going to be inflammation. It'll probably take some time to come down, or, like, let's just wait and see what happens. And so I waited, wasn't gone the next day. And then I thought, and I heard like my guide say, like, you got to trust us. You got to trust us. Like, let go of this attachment. I still was struggling with that. And I was heading to lunch, and how are we doing on time here? Okay. I was heading to lunch, still feeling like, and I had my hat on. I was trying to kind of cover the side of my face and like kind of put my hair forward, kind of feeling a little embarrassed about how the eye looked. And I went to the lunch line, and I was standing in line, and I was feeling really uncomfortable, super self-conscious. My left eye was like 3/4 closed almost. And I just remember thinking like, oh God, everyone's probably wanting to stare at how hideous my eye looks, the left side of my face. And I didn't make eye contact. Of course, we don't anyway, but for some reason I just felt, and I sat down and I started eating. And I felt like this ravenous animal wolfing down my food, kind of like the little girl in the well, like some animal. And then I felt disgust, like I didn't belong there as an outcast. I was feeling kind of embodying that part of me. Then all of a sudden I stepped into another part that was like, of course she's hungry. She hasn't eaten in months. I can't believe you were suggesting she should get on a diet. And before I came to Vipassana, I was thinking about, trying to work out and get more fit and get on a diet and so on. And I immediately started crying. And then I heard this part of me say, like, here, honey, have some dessert. I'd gotten a little bit of the apple pie or apple crumble or whatever. And as I was eating, I started sobbing as I was eating it, because there was a part of me that was like, yeah, like soothing this animalistic part of me that had been tortured and tormented. Or this part of me that was like emaciated, thin, that was being asked to be put on a diet, but she was actually being prostituted, out. Something like that. And I just started kind of sobbing. And then I immediately recognized like where my craving for sugar and my addiction to sugar came from, chocolate and sweets and so on, as like a way to suppress and soothe the guilt of the way that I treated this part of this tortured part of me. Anyway, then I immediately was taken to another part, like a loner almost, that said, how's anyone going to talk to you when this 10-day silent retreat ends? On the 9th day, they open it up for, the silence. No one's going to talk to you if you look like that, with my face and like. And then I heard a voice say like, well, let's see who comes to you. If they can't look past the monster to the healer, that's their loss. It was like this indignance. And I got up from lunch and I was leaving the hall. And instead of cowering and kind of hiding like I did when I walked in, I suddenly felt kind of this anger, and I stood up tall and I like put my hair back so you could see my face. And then I heard this other part of me, almost carrying this weaker part of me, saying, you don't like how she looks? Good, take a good look at her. This is how we mistreat the earth and women. It makes you uncomfortable? Good. And then suddenly I felt like I was marching. I was on a protest, a rally, a cause to, for women and for the earth. And I was like, yeah, that's why this eye is still there. It's like for me to have a force in the world to like change things for the better. And then immediately I heard this voice that said, what the hell are you talking about? This is how you treat yourself. And everything came to a grinding halt. And suddenly I could see all of these characters. The woman in the well that had been tortured and beaten. The woman that was abused and being prostituted out, that was made to go on a diet. The one that was like, making me feel guilty and ashamed and letting me have sweets, my addiction. The one that was the loner, that was worried about how to fit in. The one that was enraged, the activist that wanted to go out in the world and like save it. And then the part of me, the higher self, or the centered one, that was seeing all of it. And suddenly I was able to move to a place of equanimity. And then when I went into the meditation sessions, what started happening was I started being taken through all seven. Actually, no, then I activated the 7th chakra. which is the first time it was like a little marble almost that I created and then activated it. And then the 8th chakra, and then there was energizing of these chakra, of these, let's see, 8, 7, 6, 5. So my hands would go like this, and then it would suddenly go out this way. And then it would come back and do a namaste. And then I would be bowing down. And then it was almost like this feeling of like, my higher self was like bowing in front of some greater power to energize these chakras. I'm kind of knowing like that. And then my hands would, I would do multiple rounds of this. It would always go out here, almost like a begging bowl. And it was basically like, what I remembered then from Gift of the Body, that Jonathan Goldman wrote, is that compassion lives at the heart chakra, out in the emotional body, out here. And then what happened was, after 3 rounds of this, my hands came back and touched her, and I just started sobbing. I was feeling all this compassion. And what I then felt in the group meditation was like, I started thinking of all the people that I'd hurt, that I thought I'd hurt in my life. And I was reciting that Ho'oponopono prayer that I said to myself. So I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. And I'm saying it, I was sobbing, and so I said it to every person that was appearing in front of me. And I was kneeling in front of them in kind of a namaste, asking for their forgiveness and reciting this. This poem was really beautiful. It was like I was feeling all this compassion. And so essentially then, what started to happen was all the chakras, I was creating those spheres, all the sizes, all the way out from golf ball, all the way out to, huge, that was being sent to all the chakras. And what happened then was, on the last day, there was a couple of really fascinating things that happened then. Right before the Vipassana opened, so I'd signed up to go to Peru in December for Noya Rao, which is, it's like ayahuasca. It's a psychedelic, it's a plant medicine, and it's in Peru. There's different rumors that there's only like 1 or 2 plants and trees of those left. Some say that it's the bioluminescent tree that's in Avatar. Others have said that it's like the leaves that fall that become bioluminescent with this fungus that eats them and so on. But essentially there's this bioluminescence, this high divine feminine. When I was at a psilocybin journey that I mentioned in a previous video, the shaman had said that he was really getting this message that I should explore Noya Rao. And it turned out a friend of mine had actually been to a Noya Rao in Peru and recommended the shaman, and I spoke to some people and I signed up. But when I came to Vipassana, a few minutes before we were starting, we were just a couple of us talking, and this one woman then said, someone had asked her about her shoes. She said, oh, this is based on an Icaros. It's you could say that's from the Shipibo tradition, and I immediately recognized that because I researched it before signing up. And she said it part of my plant medicine work. I said, ayahuasca? And she said, yes. Have you been to Peru? I said, no, but I'm going in December. She said, which plant? I said, Noya Rao. And she's like, oh, wow. And then she suddenly started singing a Noya Rao Icaros to me, and those were the last words that I heard before I went into Vipassana. But when they closed this, opened the silence, I immediately spoke with her. We ended up connecting for hours, sharing all these synchronicities and journeys and divine goddess energy moving through us, and being drawn to psychedelics and Vipassana, and having all these incredible experiences, being with partners that didn't understand it, were very much in 3D or agnostic and so on, and incredible resonance. And then essentially, I thought the meditation would be really poor. But when I came to the evening meditation, because they'd opened it, right, I was then, let's see what happened there. Oh, right, I started feeling this energy, waves of sankharas releasing. And I felt this light, this kind of flashing light, almost like fireworks in my head, and then this wave-like form of fascia releasing, my sankharas releasing. And that continued through the night. When I was talking to people, I could feel almost in my ear, every inch of my body was like releasing. Then when I went to sleep, I tried to sleep, I was only half asleep, and I could feel it, like waves moving across my body, the sensations of these sankharas releasing. And the next morning, one woman was speaking, and then I brought it up, and she said, that's the next level of, your development, where you'll start feeling sensations all the time, and that'll take you to the next level. And they shared with us there were 7 stages of enlightenment. And I'd only been to one. I'd only experienced one last year in September, and this might have been the beginning of when I'll experience the second one, or maybe it was the second one, but essentially starting to feel sensations over the whole body. And on my ride home, so this continued, really powerful experiences. What happened the morning that we were going to leave, which again I didn't think would be such a powerful meditation, was that I would feel like a sankhara crack in my neck, and then my body would move like this. It would be like like that. And it was almost like a center of gravity at the bottom, and the whole thing would recenter, rebalance. And it was almost as if like releasing the sankara put the system in instability and out of balance, and then it would immediately move really fast and balance. And that's continued since I've gotten back. And my meditations have been incredibly deep. And on the ride back, and this is the last thing I'll leave you with, the person who gave me a car ride said he read the Tibetan book of living and dying, and said that what I described and what I experienced, he thought was very much what people often experience in death, being shown all the lokas in the Tibetan tradition. So I'm going to read that now, and I'll share back what I find. But I wanted to share that I'm on this incredible journey that's continued. Since then, I've been in the Thomas Hubel Timeless Wisdom training, which has been absolutely transformative, supernatural, and phenomenal, which I'll share in the next video. Thank you so much.